All right, that's me, Matt Sullivan. Here's my paper. Here's our group in Washington. Go ahead. Now this slide presentation was prepared by Richard Gage, who's the founder of Architects and Engineers for 9/11 Truth. Now he's an architect out in California who about a year ago became aware of the demolition of the buildings. And he's been going to architectural firms and recruiting architects to become members of his organizations. And architects and engineers, after they see this presentation, now I'm doing a slightly shorter version of his presentation here, but after they see this presentation, he has about a 90% conversion rate of people who are willing then to sign up to his organization. He has over 300 architects now, and he hopes to have 1,000 by the anniversary of 9/11 this year. That 9/11 was a psychological operation directed against the people of the United States. 9/11 was shock and awe. And we were all stunned. I know I was stunned. And when you're stunned like that, you can't really think straight. Well, it's now been 6 years. We've had time to reflect. Go ahead, please. And let's now take a look at what the original story is. This is the myth, the official myth of 9/11. We'll turn on the speaker. Turn on.
Of course. Within an hour, 2 of the planes have flown into the enormous steel towers of the World Trade Center, creating fires and eventually toppling them. Dazed by the news, the American public soon believed the fires in the towers had burned so hot they caused the steel frames of the buildings to give way. A myth developed, said by official sources through the media to a bewildered audience. Elements of the myth. The impact of the airplane, gallons of burning jet fuel, steel melting, the building failing and suddenly imploding. In a mere 10 seconds, 110 stories hurtled earthward, pulverizing into dust.
Look at the skyscrapers, because that's what the topic here tonight is. It's about the buildings. So, what can destroy skyscrapers? Well, can a plane crash and fire destroy it? We don't know. But we know that controlled demolition, that an earthquake can cause them to fall, an explosion, or sometimes they collapse in an earthquake or during construction. If there's mismanagement, they can collapse. But what about fire and plane crash? We don't know. Okay, Keegan, next slide. All right, so sometimes buildings fall over. These are typical of an earthquake. Before I saw these pictures, I never would have believed that when a building falls over, it just, in a big chunk, just falls over and holds together. Buildings are very strong. When somebody designs a building, they don't design it to fall down. They design it to stand up. But when they do fall down, even in a collapse, now this is what you might call a pancake collapse, where the floors are on top of one another like pancakes. Even then, the building wants to hang together, even though it's fallen over. All right, so here are the 3 buildings that we're going to be talking about, and the first one we're going to talk about is this one down here. Go ahead, Keegan. It looks not real big. Building 7, it's called. Go ahead. Now let's look. This slide has a lot on it, but it's a very important slide. Let me just kind of go over it briefly. This is the theory of explosive demolition of the building, and all of these here are characteristics of explosive demolition. Things like the sudden onset of collapse. All columns go at once. Sounds and flashes of explosions. The free fall speed of the collapse. Straight down into its own footprint. Squibs, which are explosive charges that we may see coming out of the side of the building. Demolition waves. The explosions can be set off in a wave. So they start at one side of the building or start at one point and move across the building. Okay? Enormous clouds of pulverized concrete. Small iron microspheres in the dust and pools of molten iron. When you use certain kinds of explosives, this is what you'll get. And the total dismemberment of the structure. All of these are characteristics of controlled demolition. None of them are characteristics of fire. You would not expect to find any of these if it was brought down by a fire. So if we can show these things that are direct evidence of explosives, and if we can back it up with whistleblowers, expert corroboration, evidence of foreknowledge. You would have foreknowledge in a controlled demolition. You wouldn't normally have full foreknowledge if it was an accidental, spontaneous fall down. If we document it with video, from evidence from the FEMA report, and have testimony from the first responders, if we can back up these characteristics with these corroborating evidence, we pretty much have, it's not on the screen. We pretty much have proof of controlled demolition. That's what that says. Total proof of controlled demolition. Next slide. Okay, so here's our building that we're going to be looking at. This is WTC 7. It doesn't look here standing next to these two giants, but this is a very large building. I went on the web and looked to see where the closest building comparable might be. Pittsburgh has several large buildings, and there's a couple of them. One of them in particular is even a little bit taller than this building, but it's not as big. There's no building in Pittsburgh that is as massive as this building. This would be the largest building in 33 states. This is a big building, 47 stories, takes up a whole city block, huge. The video evidence, they were able to, looking at the video and seeing how fast the building comes down. Now, these frames, I believe, are a second apart, and you can see the building moves a little bit, and then a little more, and then a little more. Each frame it's dropping faster and faster. They plotted this. The little squares are the measurements of the building's fall, and the line is the theoretical speed of free fall. And you can see that it lines up perfectly. So this building, in fact, does fall exactly at gravitational free fall speed.